Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Thursday, November 21st, 2024. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and change. Getting a little bit of a late start. Thank you guys for joining in here. There's frost on the ground, so we need a little more spring in our step. Got Bill Kurelic and Mark Porter coming up. Big recruiting weekend, big football weekend. The Hoosiers are coming to town. Biggest game in the history of Indiana Hoosier football. Hopefully we can spoil that. One way we will get today's show going is by announcing to you how excited we are about our latest sponsor, and that is Cornbread Hemp, and a great deal you guys can get. If you're looking for a healthier way to enjoy a carefree moment, you have to give Cornbread Hemp a try. Excuse me. They've created the first ever USDA organic THC gummy that's 100% legal for anyone 21 and above. Cornbread's gummies have 10 milligrams of THC per gummy, just the right dose. Perfect for taking the edge off without making you feel anxious or paranoid like other cannabis edibles. Furthermore, Cornbread does not use any synthetic ingredients at all. So again, if you're looking for a healthier way to enjoy a carefree moment, you have to give Cornbread Hemp a try. 100% legal, and I have a special offer. Bucknuts Morning 5 listeners get 30% off your first order. Just visit cornbreadhemp.com/Bucknuts. That is key. Then put in the promo code Bucknuts at checkout, 30% off for a healthier happy hour. cornbreadhemp.com/Bucknuts. All righty. Let's bring in these fine gentlemen for another carefree experience. Guys, big weekend coming up. I'm not sure when the season started, if we had this one circled with the level of ink that we do now, but we do. It's Indiana, undefeated, and that means a nice guest list. But first thing we want to talk about is there was a decommitment since we last chatted, and that is Zahir Mathis. Defensive end out of Pennsylvania, whose recruitment should be fun to watch from here on out. But Ohio State then offered Chaz Coleman. And you say, who's Chaz Coleman? Here's the good thing. I have the guys to answer that. Mark, you're going to give the evaluation. But Bill, first, let us know who Chaz Coleman is, how the dominoes fell, and will they fall any further towards Columbus?
He is a 6'5", 225-pound edge, defensive end, tight end, good athlete from Warren Harding High School in Ohio. He was really looking at – he has a number of scholarship offers, but the two ones that he was most looking at were Penn State and Kentucky at the top pretty much. And then Ohio State certainly was on his mind. In fact, he went to a game at Ohio State a few weeks ago and afterwards told me that he loved it there. He said it was a good visit and he liked everything he saw. Ohio State had not offered him a scholarship and did not on that visit, but they were interested. Good morning, Deetra. At that point, he had almost a dozen scholarship offers. He subsequently, though, ended up committing to Penn State. I believe it was November 10th, maybe 11th. I think it was November 10th that he announced he was committed to Penn State. It was interesting, though, that he told me after that Ohio State visit that before, again, that he was committed to Penn State, that he would get back to Ohio State for another game. Now, right after he got the scholarship offer, and I mean right after he got the scholarship offer from Ohio State, I talked to him on the phone, and he was pretty excited about it. But he said he would not be at the Ohio State-Indiana game this weekend. He did say that he didn't know about the Ohio State-Michigan game. So right now, that would be the target for Ohio State to get him back for the Ohio State-Michigan game.
Mark, you're going to give us the video component here to Chaz Coleman. Before you start, let us know what you think of him, what you thought of him. He doesn't necessarily play defensive end exclusively. In fact, he doesn't. So whatever you know about him and the video we're about to see would be tremendous.
Yeah, quite a history going back a couple years. As I was thinking about this, I wish we had a before and after from sophomore year until now. And my other thought is, if you've been with this podcast, I've kind of been preaching, don't worry when someone drops out of the class. Justin Hill dropped out of the class, and it was like the world ended, and there was no more Justin Hills on the face of the earth, and we would never find another player to be developed. Last year at this time, Chaz Coleman, they were getting a new coach at Warren Harding, and he was a quarterback, and a kid named Drew McCullen was the quarterback. And Drew actually transferred out to Lakeview. He's a college-level quarterback. So there was a rotation there last year where these two were quarterbacks. And it misframed him as a player, as an athlete. Everyone was just like, what a freak athlete, what a freak athlete. He was going to be the quarterback, but he shows up at Ohio State's camp as a tight end. And even at that time, it was probably a 50-50 that day. Should he work out on defense? Should he work out on offense? You know, what do you want to do, Chaz? And it's kind of one of those things where no one's been able to put a peg on him. Well, we're about to show you some highlights. And, boy, if he doesn't look better than Justin Hill on a couple of these plays, I don't know what I'm watching. But it just goes to show you guys that players like this, players like B.P. Miller, go other places, and they have every bit the same amount of talent as the big name, you know, guy that we're familiar with that came from the big school, but they're not getting the credit. And then you see him in the NFL draft pop up. And I think this is going to be the case where we're going to take more of these developmental type. Well, I'll get rid of the sound there. There we go. Didn't expect the Panther growl, but look at the explosion out of the blocks. That offensive tackle didn't even lay a finger on him. I mean, he ran the hump like a tailback there. And I think I framed him as like a poor man's Terrell Pryor at quarterback. Well, that's what Terrell Pryor would look like on defense. I mean, this kid has, like, I want to say development ahead of him where he's going to be a way better version of Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be better than someone like Justin Hill, but I wouldn't want to be the guy betting against it because the natural traits are there. Now, these will be some of his offensive highlights, and I don't think we care about him throwing a ball or whatever, but it obviously demonstrates, you know, how wide his talent ability is. Unbelievable basketball player. And, wow, I just – this is the case in point for – look at the freaking nature. I mean, he might be as good as any player we've seen come off the edge in some of the clips we're watching. And I don't know what happens to this defensive back here, but that's what I would do. Just go down.
Slip.
Yeah, slip. So, I mean, you could see if they needed him at tight end, they could probably develop him there. You're taking a unbelievable athlete at 6'5", 225 pounds. And it's not – it feels like this was a backup plan. No way. This is a big-time developmental prospect that was going to go somewhere and end up being drafted someday, potentially.
It's interesting, Mark. I once talked to a baseball scout, and he said when he goes to high school games, he only looks up the middle. He only looks at pitchers, center fielders, shortstops, because everybody puts their best player at those positions. When you go to college, the left fielder was a high school shortstop, et cetera. So that leans to the idea of a lot of times you just have to put your best player at quarterback. There's been injuries, there's been whatever, and you just got to throw them in there. And like you said, that kind of takes the bullseye off of them, but very impressive. Very impressive.
And that was more the scene in the offseason is, oh, he's going to be playing quarterback, and the other kid had to transfer out. And there was a big, that's tough. Could they use him somewhere else and keep that other quarterback? And I don't know if there was a right or wrong answer to all that stuff, but boy, like you said, just put him back there. And his offensive highlights are unreal. He does look like Terrell Pryor a few times in the open field where you kind of have those flashbacks.
Also, Bill, I think you would echo this. Much rather have an Ohio guy who wants to be here than an out-of-state guy that may be interested in other things. So we will digress there. Jacob Weatherspoon, another announcement for this weekend will be here, Bill. Another Ohioan. I wanted to make sure we got started with a good Buckeye State vibe here. Your thoughts on Jacob Weatherspoon, why he chose this weekend, where they see him and on the field, and then where his recruitment stands. And then, Mark, you can hop in here with your evaluation of Jacob Weatherspoon. Go ahead, Bill.
He's going to be at Ohio State not only this weekend, but next weekend for the Michigan game. So very good sign. I've actually had Jacob Weatherspoon crystal ball to Ohio State since July. Really like, obviously, the Buckeyes' chances there. He is playing on a 13-0 Avon team. They play in the playoffs this weekend against the 13-0 Highland team, I believe it is. That should be a great game. After that, he will head to Ohio State on Saturday for the Indiana game, then to the Michigan game the following weekend. And, he's consistently told me that he doesn't plan to make a decision until at least after the end of this junior football season. I think it could be any time between after his season till the spring that Jacob Weatherspoon makes his decision. I continue to like Ohio State there, has a nice list of offers. And he's an really good all-around athlete, and I think Mark will clue you in on that more, but a really good all-around athlete that Ohio State is recruiting as a cornerback. He, by the way, earned his scholarship offer after a really good performance at Ohio State's one-day camp on June 5th. And without a doubt, in my mind, one of the top players in Ohio for the class of 2026.
Mark, show us why Bill thinks that.
Boy, is he good. Now, we first learned about him when Michigan offered him sophomore year and kind of blew up on the scene. And he wasn't very big then. I think I remember him as a 5'9", like 170-pounder. Plays both ways, both sides of the ball. I saw him, I think, week 2, and he delivered a blow, much like the hit you're going to see right here, and he kind of knocked himself out of the game. They had him not playing corner but playing safety the game I was at, and I think it's because of what you're seeing right there, the tackling ability. He did move over to corner at different times, I think, based on receiver or maybe a matchup they wanted to exploit. But I think he could come in and you'll see the ball skills here. The clips I had of him, I know he played center field, made a few nice plays. But big-time speed, really one of the faster kids in the class. I've seen him in these combos. You see him cover that ground right there. Like a missile. Yeah, so, he triggers. But there's a reason why Ohio State's having him in. He's probably one of the top-rated core. I like Albert Hill because Albert's a little taller, but Witherspoon's in that same class. He can definitely get it done out there.
Dan, real quick, we always talk about these kids on the field, and rightly so. That's what you're the main. But Jacob Weatherspoon is a really good kid. I mean, he is a polite guy. He's just really a really fine young man that, we don't often talk about the kind of guys you want in the program. He's one of the kind of guys you want in the program. Just a great kid.
Yeah, I wonder if that's not even a bigger deal now. We talk about this in the past with the NIL and with people's intentions and with people's long-term goals. I've talked about this in basketball a little bit. Duke, when they recruit, they're looking for the total package, right? I think Ohio State's gotten to that point now where you need to make sure the dude's going to be able to handle a lot more now. I mean, it's one thing to have to hide the Lamborghini in the back in the student parking lot and pretend it's not yours. Now you can park right in front. Everybody knows whose car it is. And that creates a lot. If you're 18 years old at Ohio State, you don't think there's any distractions there? You think those guys struggle socially? So it's a lot to ask. The better dudes you get, the better it is. Speaking of which, I want to read to you our second sponsor, and this one's a little bit more in the wheelhouse here, and that is PrizePicks, the best way to get real money with sports action. 10 million members, billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Very simple. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long with PrizePicks. Think Jamar Chase is going to get more than 83.5 receiving yards next week? Nick Chubb will run for more than 55.5 yards. The Cowboys will have more than 3 or 4 guys sustain season-ending injuries. Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this football season when you and your crew run your game on PrizePicks. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Download the PrizePicks apps today. PrizePicks app today and use code Bucknuts to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the PrizePicks app today and use code Bucknuts to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. The extremely astute listeners heard a growl there, and it was not my stomach. It was Brad. All right. Okay. There's sometimes the text, I will admit I'm not the professional I need to be, and the comments throw me. There was one there that made me chuckle, and I lost my sense of where I was. I'm back. William. Another one. Ryan's on a roll. Okay. Timeout. Dan. Serenity now. William. The guest list for this weekend. Who do you have coming here? We talked about Jacob Weatherspoon would be here. Chaz Coleman would not. Can we take another more national perspective? Who are the biggest dudes coming this weekend?
Before I get to that, Dan, since you mentioned Brad, Brantley's right down here sitting in my feet. He is my golden retriever. He wants equal time with Brad.
He's too well behaved.
Yeah, he's being very good right now, resting. But back to the Indiana guest list. It's going to be a good weekend. Now, unfortunately, as always happens when you have a noon game, there are some guys that cannot make it, usually from distance. And Jared Curtis is not going to make it, the quarterback from Louisiana. And in fact, I think I saw a question about that somewhere on there today. But he won't make it. But there will be some really good players that do make it, unless something happens, like the ice and snowstorm that we had when I woke up this morning. But starting with the official visit, there is one of them, at least right now, Jordan Woods. He is committed to Cincinnati, a cornerback from Georgia, and he's a long corner and a talented kid. Would not be surprised at all if he eventually flips to Ohio State, but he will be making his official visit to Ohio State this weekend. Going down to the class of 2000, and by the way, a lot of the Ohio State commitments will be in town for the game too, including Phillip Bell, all the way from California, coming to this game. That's great. Tavian St. Clair, B.P. Miller, Brody Lennon, Jake Cook, Eli Lee. Those are some of the commitments that'll be in town for the game. And then we used to think of the game as being Michigan, but right now the game is Indiana, at least for right now. Then you've got from the class of 2026 uncommitted guys. Well, actually, one of them is committed. Defensive end Xavion Griffin-Hayes is committed to North Carolina right now, but he is returning to Ohio State this weekend. Ohio State offered him, had a really good camp at Ohio State in June. He'll be in town. And another guy to highlight is definitely Micah Smith, the offensive lineman from Vero Beach. Does that sound familiar? Vero Beach is home to Tarvos Alford. So Tarvos won't be here this weekend, but Micah Smith will, and he's long had an offer from Ohio State. He would be a nice guy to add to the class eventually. I think this is multiple times that Micah Smith has been to Ohio State. Then Jacob Weatherspoon, we talked about. The safety group, really good group coming into Ohio State this weekend, providing, again, they all make it. You got Zayden McDonald from New Jersey, who will make the trip. First-time visit for him to Ohio State, making the trip with his mom. Jet Washington, Blaine Bradford, highly rated safeties. Ohio State has offered a scholarship too. And then keep an eye on Joey O'Brien. Really good offer list. He is from the East Coast. A really good offer list, and I would not be shocked at all if Ohio State offered him this weekend. Certainly got to mention Sincere Johnson, linebacker from Glenville, visiting Ohio State this weekend. Those are the guys that Ohio State has offered. I've left one out, that being Jude Cascone. He is a tight end from Georgia that is making a visit to Ohio State this weekend. So overall, pretty darn good weekend as far as a noon start time and a game that wasn't originally scheduled to be a key recruiting weekend.
Everyone will be here in terms of the media and the platforms and such. So it'll be something to definitely keep an eye on. All right, we're going to go rapid fire here. And then at the end of the show, we will let the Dean and the Grand Poobah will let you know what they think is going to happen against the Hoosiers. We're going to go rapid fire here on the questions. First one from Shocker Mika. Thoughts on Ryder Hooks from Lakota East, running back, Mark?
A little bit small. I think we watched Turbo Rogers, and this is maybe what spoiled it for me. I watched Turbo Rogers, and then I watched Ryder Hooks, and yeah, it didn't hold up the way I would have liked it to. And that's no shot to any running back in the entire country, but that might be the running back caliber that Ohio State's looking for. And if you are a 5'9", 185 pounds or under, you have to be the fastest player in captivity. I mean, you got to go. But he does. He has got some power. He's got a nice little film. I saw them week 2, and I thought, earlier in the year, I thought Lakota East was going to make a little run because they had a quarterback, receivers, tight ends, O-line, and a great back, but it just didn't work out. Their record didn't pan out the way I thought it would have.
Big game this weekend. St. X and Chase Herbstreit take on Matt Ponatoski and Moeller. Ponatoski has been had a very interesting career. Was one of those guys, was thought to be a baseball player. I can't remember if he was committed elsewhere, but he was a big-time prospect. Still is. But has thrived at quarterback, got on the field as a freshman. And now this game, boy, you want to talk about a hard time to get parking? This game is going to be a hard time to get parking. If Mark does not have extreme parking, or the Dean, if they're going to this game, I would not go without media parking. You're talking about St. X versus Moeller. I mean, for Ohio, for those two to play in the playoffs at this level, I mean, you can make a documentary film starting today and just film the day and do it, and you have some nice content. So let's talk about that matchup, Mark, and then what you think of Ponatoski, and then Bill. I didn't even know he was coming this weekend. That's pretty cool. You can let us know kind of where he is.
He's not.
He's not. Okay, interesting.
He is supposed to. He told, as of 2 nights ago, he told me he will not be at this game, but 90% chance that he will be at the Ohio State Michigan game.
Okay.
Ponatoski we're talking about. Now, Bernard will be at Ohio State this weekend.
Okay, cool. Nate Bernard, obviously the quarterback from Ashland. We've talked about him a lot. Can you, Mark, bring us up to speed on Ponatoski, what you think of him real quick, and then Bill, maybe where he stands from a recruiting standpoint? Obviously, in-state quarterback is a very interesting topic. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I hate to go back to sore times for the Moeller fans, but it was Ponatoski's freshman year, and there was another starting quarterback, and they were making a deep run into the playoffs, and they had the running back that was going to Michigan. And in that game, they put Ponatoski in for the older quarterback, and it didn't go so well that night, and it ended their season. So when I was introduced to him, I realized how talented he was for him to be put in that situation, and how the staff believed in him, and the coaching staff down there really believed in him as a freshman. And then since then, to watch him develop to where he's at today, he's grown, he's got stronger, he's changed over. I think he was a Missouri commit for baseball. I think he changed over to football. And I've talked to him a couple times at camps and said, you want me to promote you for football, right? You want to be in all the reports? And he, yes, sir. And, he was definitely put his best foot forward for football. Last time we talked about him, I said, your closest comparison would be like a Julian Sayin type. He is a spin it guy. He's a great passer, but he has the fastball. I mean, I think his fastball was one of the top couple fastballs in the state of Ohio. I remember seeing the radar gun readouts, and I was not an adept at radar gun readouts as I am at 40 times, but he was one of the top dogs. So the power is in his arm to go with all that other stuff. Really good athlete, moves around. So Sayin's your comparison. Bernard is, your big drop back guy comparison. And, we've shown video of him working out and plenty of times on this podcast.
William?
He, as we talked about, he is a big-time baseball guy. In fact, I talked to him the other night. I am a big lover of Major League Baseball, so we had quite a conversation about Major
Who's
League
his squad,
Baseball.
Bill?
What's that?
Is he a Reds fan?
Cleveland, Indians, Guardians. Yep. But
No.
yeah.
I know you are. Panatoski. Who's his team?
Oh, we didn't talk about who he follows,
Okay.
actually.
We all know you love Cleveland, Bill. Go ahead.
Matt, he really is, he is being sought after, even though he has a great arm, as a shortstop baseball-wise. He is a pitcher. He's a shortstop, but he's mostly being sought after as a shortstop because he's a great hitter. He originally was going baseball, as Mark alluded to. Now, it's hard to say. He said that now that his recruitment has picked up in football, we'll see where it leads. He has 6 offers. In fact, when I was talking to him on the phone, I think it was Tuesday night, Louisville had offered maybe 15 minutes before I talked to him. So we'll see where it goes. But planning to be at the Ohio State Michigan game, and again, big game this weekend. We were talking about how the Moeller game, tickets went on sale for that game, the Moeller St. X game, and they're playing in about a 7,000-seat Mason High School stadium, and tickets were sold out within a few hours for that game.
That's a massive football game. I think Mason's actually the biggest, most attended high school in the state. So maybe parking will be better than I thought. But still, you can't, get there early. Larry Ventresco asked Mark, who you got between Bishop Waterston and Steubenville and Menor versus St. Ed's?
Tell you what, the people in town here that are Ursuline fans really want to know about Waterston and Steubenville and Toledo Central Catholic. And I'm going to see Toledo Central Catholic this week. My wife Stephanie saw Steubenville. They're undefeated. Any undefeated Steubenville team scares me because of the coaching staff down there. Reno Sequoia is one of the best in the state. And when he gets dealt a straight flush, he knows how to play it. I watched Waterston undress Chardon in a mercy rule game. I mean, they just took them apart. It was over by the time it started. It just seemed like Waterston is a big, powerful offensive line, great quarterback, Belisari. They had all the pieces with power running backs and receivers and tight ends. Because I saw Waterston, I think I got to give them the edge, but that's going to be that's going to be one of the better games in the state of Ohio. I think that's a pretty even fight. Until Menor gets beat, I can't pick against them. I watched Menor just take apart a team a few weeks ago. They have the quarterback going to West Virginia, the big-time receiver, big-time offense. I mean, they have all the pieces of their puzzle. So I'll go with Menor in that matchup. And Menor's going to be tough to beat. They could be the state champion this year.
When Menor gets it rolling, that's an entire town behind one team. I mean, that's a locomotive right there.
And I think at one point Menor was the biggest Division I school in Ohio. It may be a Mason. I think it was Fairfield at one point, but it's got quite a draw of athletes.
Bill, is Ohio State one of the 50 offers for DeSoto, Texas sophomore Booby Feaster? And I will say this. I went and looked up that name because I thought there was a chance he might be trolling us and using the name Booby from the movie Friday Night Lights. And I didn't want to ask about Booby Miles. Go ahead.
Oh, he is. He does go by Booby, although I think his real name is Ethan. But I'm not.
It is. Good call. Okay. I just looked it up. It is.
But Booby Feaster, he's got a nice offer list. He is a 2027 athlete from DeSoto, Texas. And he is a good one. In fact, some people feel he is the #1 player in the state of Texas for the class of 2027. Right now, he does not have an Ohio State scholarship offer. But again, he's a 2027 guy. But he really does have a great list so far, offer-wise.
It is pretty interesting. If you're from Texas and you play running back and your nickname is Booby, you're probably pretty darn good. Okay, that's kind of a royal name there. All right. I think we've gone far enough here, gentlemen, with talk of the future or the distant future or the more distant future. Let's talk about the immediate future, and that is Ohio State versus Indiana. Bill, you predicted it. You said Cignetti would come in and be 10-0 and get a contract upgrade and be the darling of college football, and that the Indiana game would be much more impactful on the college football playoff than Ohio State, Michigan. Pretty obvious, or not. William, your thoughts on the game? There's been some unbelievable bad luck for Ohio State this week. Another offensive lineman goes down, Seth McLaughlin, who was having a great year. And also, shocker, he can snap it. That never happened, by the way. Just a shame, literally. His college career is over. He's now headed probably to rehab and go to the NFL. Ohio State still has to play the game. They announced Carson Hinsman will switch from left guard back to center from last year. Austin Sierreveld, speaking of Lakota East, will come in at left guard. Donovan Jackson, who was a left guard, is still out at left tackle. Bill, does Ohio State have a chance against the mighty Hoosiers with this lineup? Excuse me.
I think I would give them a chance, yes. But I can't say that it doesn't concern me that at least a little that McLaughlin is out. I mean, that's not a knock on Hinsman nor Sierreveld. In fact, I thought Sierreveld did an admirable job when he played for a few games when Donovan Jackson was out. I thought Sierreveld did a decent job. Carson Hinsman has done a really nice job at guard this year. But what I'm saying is McLaughlin's really good. I think he was about as good as any center in the country prior to that injury, to be honest. So that does concern me. Having said that, I just think that Ohio State, it's just hard for me. I know Indiana's good. I've watched them and I've been impressed with them, but it's hard for me to imagine with basically so many marbles, so much on the line and all, that Indiana's going to walk into Ohio Stadium and beat Ohio State. I might be wrong, but I just don't. I just think Ohio State is going to come out on top.
The statistics, when you look at them head-to-head, aren't even really applicable long-term because Ohio State has beaten them, could be speaking out of turn, I want to say 30 straight times or something, just absolutely a number that you would stop compiling. They beat them that many times in a row. You know what I mean? That said, they will line up, and what makes Indiana so interesting is they've got so many guys from that James Madison team who, even though it's a lower level, they're like in their early 30s. What's your vibe on this game, Mark?
I saw the stat where Indiana has only beat the bottom 7 teams in the Big Ten. They haven't beat anybody that's any good in the Big Ten. And
7 of the 8 are on their schedule.
Yeah, and that's scary. And if I'm the people who just paid that coach, that's a little scary. I don't know if you get paid like that to beat the bottom part of the conference. I think you get paid like that to take on the top guys and get on equal footing. We'll see how that all works out. But what always scares me is when teams are confident and they'll have their Super Bowl mentality where this is going to be their Super Bowl. They are well coached. And like you said, being 30 years old is an advantage in the intricacies of the game and knowing little ways. So I think they're going to give us a fit, and it's usually a first half fit, but then Ohio State should just out-talent them, outplay them, and, get the score where it should be. I think it's a 2-touchdown spread. That sounds like Vegas has it about right to me. But teams like this do make me nervous. Just confidence. And anytime there's an upset, it's a team like this that can usually pull it off. And I'm speaking about Indiana, that really believes in themselves, that's kind of ignorant with their ability. They don't realize that they're not that good. It's like the
irrational confidence.
Yeah, there you go. It's like the mini Doberman Pinscher that thinks it's the real Doberman Pinscher, and it runs around barking like it's going to take you down like the real Doberman Pinscher. And, there's something to be said for that.
Just to make this more personal, because I know people love that. Irrational confidence is something that Bill Simmons, the famous podcaster, has coined the phrase, and it's a basketball term, and it's the guy that just shoots. He's got irrational confidence, and you're like, nah, that's the guy who hits 5 threes in the NBA Finals, though, right? Because he's not afraid of the moment. He's got irrational confidence in himself, and you need that when you step on the field with monsters.
I've never heard that, and that is exactly the feeling that was in my head. Like, they don't know not to do what they're doing. They don't know, like, hey, we're not supposed to win this, so I'm not going to run my hitch route at the correct depth and turn around. The ball's not going to be there like it's been 100. So there is an irrational confidence. Great call, Dan.
I also want to give credit to Hollywood Hager, because when I said that, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking to myself, I hope people don't bring up the one kind of like outlier, most famous outlier to irrational confidence, and boom, there it is right there. Talk about irrational confidence. It can work against you in extreme situations. All right, great job by everybody there. Here's my feeling on the game, and it has not changed. It will not be any easier with the offensive lineman up front, but I went and looked at it. There's still the guys we have lined up, even our backups, are so much more highly rated than the guys they're going against, even our backups, which is incredible. And I'll say this has become my mantra: don't turn it over. That's it. If Ohio State does not turn it over, and by that I mean, interception, fumble, anything like that, and then no turnovers on downs, they'll win. I think they'll beat anybody in the country this year, like I said, if they don't have any turnovers, meaning just the equal number of possessions as the other team. I think they'll win. If that gets altered early because a former Michigan State defensive lineman rips the ball out of your hands, or an Ohio, Iowa linebacker smashes someone behind the ball, comes out, then I'm out. Then I'm not out. Still think they have a good chance to win, but then I don't know. I also think this: Ohio State has yet to put together what anyone would consider a complete game. I don't think. If they do that, I think this could be the show for the rest of the country, and solidify them where they need to be up top before the game. So very hopeful, but boy, this is a big game against a team you're 30-0 against. Just feels weird. Let's hope the weather participates. We do not want foul weather. Rain and weather can be the great equalizer, and we do not want that. So we want these guys back on Tuesday talking about a W. Hopefully we will do that. Have a good one, Nutters of Buck.